What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. I am here with my January monthly wrap up. It's a little late. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm going to start with the books that I physically read that were on my physical TBR, and then I'll jump into the books that I read on my Kindle. So these aren't in the order that I read them, just the order that I have them placed here. And like I said, after this list, we'll jump into my Kindle reads. But I read 15 books this month. Let me see. Correction. I read 17 books this month. 17 books read. Okay. Anyways, let's get started. First, we have Neuromancer by William Gibson. This was a really interesting book. It was written in the 80s. You can tell it was written in the 80s. It was very nostalgic, very, I don't know, like it was an interesting book. I've never read another book by William Gibson, but I would read more. This kind of read like a movie that I would watch or like a TV show series that I would watch. It's following the main character through this like cyber underworld at the time. So it's set in the future, but it was written in the 80s. So do with that what you will. But it was pretty interesting, like just thinking about like the underground cyber world and what the crime scene would look like in the future. I thought it was interesting. It was, I don't know, it was interesting. I don't know what else to say about it because it was like nostalgic and futuristic at the same time. Very interesting though. It reminded me kind of like think about Back to the Future, but with cyber and bio, like drugs and scandals. That's what this is. Pretty good though. And then if you watch my channel, you already know I did a review of the next three, but I'm reading through Toni Morrison's catalog, her fiction catalog. And so the first one that I read was The Bluest Eye. Might as well name all three. Sula and then Song of Solomon. Y'all, these books, these are some heavy hitting books. They are so well written. I mean, like beautiful poetic prose, super deep topics, super deep themes, very descriptive like scenes, but very, to me, very necessary reads for me because I feel like I needed to read these. They are hard to read. All of these books have like super strong characters, very developed plots. And they're just interesting. Like this one in particular talks about self-image and that internalized self-hatred and how that's almost fueled and caused by external forces. Talks about the ridiculousness of like whitewashed beauty standards. Talks about children, like how they are so unprotected, how the cycle continues. So much. Pecola, who is the main character in this, I don't think I'll ever forget what's in this book. Then you have Sula, same thing. I'll never forget Sula, who's the main character in this book. This really like highlights so like womanhood in general, highlights hatred and community vitriol, just so much with this. And they all are just written so beautifully. Sula was a trip now, a trip. Then you have Song of Solomon, which was, to me, it was a little bit different than The Bluest Eye and Sula, not because the subject matter and the themes weren't heavy, because they were, but this one like brought in other things that I didn't really see in the first two. It has again dynamic characters like Milkman, Hagar, Guitar, like so many. And then like this kind of deals with the issue or the themes of like, I'm trying not to get canceled on YouTube, but like self-harm to the max, abuse, family issues, generational things, the importance of names and people and towns and stories being told. It's a good book. It's a good one. Then I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This was really good. It was very interesting as well because I don't, and then the thing is, I can't really say what got me like that because it's a spoiler, but it had some things in this book that were it was just an interesting choice of how she took this story. So this story essentially follows Dana, who travels back to the past to help this person. And she's like, she doesn't understand how she got there. She doesn't understand the connection and what is causing this to happen. And I feel like there were a lot of unanswered questions for me in this book. There were some things that I would like to know more about when it came to her ancestors and some things like that. But overall, this book was really good. It was just, I still feel like I have questions, but it was still good. It was a good book. Good book. So actually, I'll just jump down here. I also read, because I read that, the graphic novel adaptation of Kindred, which is just a beautiful, almost retelling in graphic novel form of Kindred. It was so nice to read Kindred first and then jump in and read this. It was very satisfying. I feel like it was kind of like reading a book and then watching a movie afterwards. Very satisfying. Okay. Then we have Girl One. Girl One, I've already put my review up, but it is about a compound of women who gave birth without male DNA. And then what goes on throughout that, it has like a mystery involved where the main character is searching for her mom who disappeared. And it's like two storylines merged into one. Very interesting sci-fi mystery thriller type book. It was actually a really good read. He had Bad Girls of the Bible. I've already talked about this. It is a novel approach to Bible study. It starts off each chapter with the fictional retelling of a Bible story that includes a bad girl of the Bible, talking about women like Eve, not Delilah, Eve, Delilah, Lot's wife, the prostitute, Rahab, like people like that. So it's actually really interesting. I enjoyed this a lot. I really did. Potiphar's wife. And then it talks about how we can relate to them currently, how we might find ourselves as women in similar situations and what we can learn from them. Really good. Then we have Tina Turner's book, My Love Story. Tina is somebody who was a big part of my childhood. Her music, the movie What's Love Got to Do With It. I feel like I've watched it a million times and listened to her music a lot growing up. And this kind of, it filled in some gaps that I really didn't get from the movie. Some of the stuff it kind of like rehashed, but it explains some things that you probably wouldn't get from the movie or her music. It talked about Ike, of course. It talked about her as a mom, her friendships, her relationships outside of Ike. And then it talked about her current, or her last husband, I should say, and what happened with her kids. Like, this was interesting because it had so much stuff in here that I didn't know about. So much. So, yeah. Tina Turner, 200 million records sold, 12 Grammys, only one Tina Turner. The next three are indie. So we have I Thought You Loved Me by Screw You and What Is Love by Screw You. Both of these books, by the same author, obviously, but they were really good. So I'll read them in order. This was book one, I Thought You Loved Me. This book is filled with messiness, drama, tea. It's fast paced, high energy. It's that urban fiction that you like know and love. This is that. It has like stuff that's funny, and I was literally laughing out loud. It had so many good, interesting things in it. Like, I will definitely recommend this book. Sorry, y'all, I just dropped the book. But then also by What Is Love, we have this is part two, and it kind of continues the story where this book ends off. It is good. It has some really good characters in it. B-Boy. You get to hear more about Autumn and Leah and how everything came to be. Like, this was a really, really good addition to the first book. I love how you can kind of understand the characters more and the plot more with the second book. So, okay. Then you have our friend wrote a book, Transcending Football. Mental Health is Also Health by Tevin Mitchell, who's a retired NFL veteran. This book is short, but it's impactful. It's powerful. Like, it talks about mental health, how it gets ignored in professional sports. It talks about his entire path from a child to life after the NFL. It talks about, I learned a lot about the NFL process reading this book. I learned a lot about what goes into it. And then it had like almost a self-help aspect, not quite, but when he was like bringing home his points, a lot of it was very much like, if I could do XYZ, you can too. And I was like, that was cool. It was a really good book. It's Perfect Peace by Daniel Black. This book, I've talked about it, I reviewed it. Y'all know this was a great book. I initially read it on my Kindle and then went and purchased a physical copy because it was that good. It's wild. I'm telling you, right off the bat, this book is wild. It follows the main character, Perfect Peace, and what his life looks like. His mom, dad, siblings, friendships. And it really made me like reflect on myself as a parent, because so many times you're so convinced that what you're doing is the right thing. Like, so convinced that what you're doing is the right thing, but is it? And like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Like, do you really have your children's best interests at heart? So that's what that book made me think about, to be honest. And now I'm going to go over my ebooks that I read on my Kindle. Okay, so the first one that I read on my Kindle was Black Shield Maiden. I already told y'all about that, by Willow Smith and Jess Is it Henson and Hindle? Jess Hindle. I didn't really like that book. It was okay. Wasn't everything that I wanted. I ain't really like it, but y'all might. Again, I read this as a part of a book club, and I was the only one that didn't like it. So you might love it. Moving right along. I also had this physical book, but I couldn't find it. It's the XY. It was kind of like when I went over Girl One. Imagine the concept of Girl One, where it's like this, it really focuses on men and women and what it means to be a man and a woman, and like that relation between the two. It's kind of like Girl One, but a little bit worse. It wasn't bad. Still sci-fi, had a little mystery in it, fast paced. I just didn't like it as much as I did Girl One. It was just all right. Yeah. The next one is Song of My Softening by Omatara James. This is a really good collection of poetry. It's written from a Nigerian American's perspective, and it's full of like self-image and self-love and identity. It's a coming of age story, almost like a love story to herself. It talks about the intersection between being fat and being queer and Black. Very, very interesting. I enjoyed it. I liked it. You should probably check it out too. Then, dang, y'all, I feel like I didn't grab half these books because I have this too. Let me see. Look at me. The last two I actually have physically. Hold on. Okay. Then we have Aaliyah. Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, by Kathy Iandoli. This is a really good book that I read in January. Very powerful. I appreciated the respect that this book was written with. It talks about Aaliyah's accomplishments in totality from the time she was a child, and then her impact after her untimely passing. It does not glorify and highlight R. Kelly outside of Aaliyah, but it does talk about him because he was a part of her story. But in a realistic way. It's not like glamorizing him or anything. Really good read. I learned a lot about Aaliyah reading this. And then I read Animal Farm by George Orwell. Short read, very good, very interesting. It talks about how there is nothing new under the sun. Everything that we do has been done, is going to be done again. It doesn't talk about it in that way, but that's kind of what I took from it. It talks about how society as a whole it has the tendency to constantly repeat itself. Like history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And yeah, it talks about how people, the human population, period, society, has a short memory. It talks about people can be manipulated. It talks about especially how you can like break up society in different groups or castes or classes and manipulate them in series or in sections. So yeah, very interesting read. Very, very interesting. And that's it, y'all. Let me double check to make sure I didn't read anything else on my Kindle, because it's looking like I only read one thing on my Kindle. Wait, I read one more thing. So that would finish this out. I got the graphic novel adaptation and read that. And that's it. But yeah, y'all, that's it. Let me know if you read any of these. If any of these are on your TBR, let me know. Okay, see y'all next time.